Welcome back, everyone. For days now, Nigerians have been glued to television sets, newspapers, as well as social media in a bid to hear the latest in what has been termed a political whirlwind on the floor of the Nigerian Senate. An issue involving the senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, and the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, bordering on sexual harassment. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan accused the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, of sexually harassing her. This allegation raised a lot of dust on the floor of the Nigerian Senate. Recall that this whole debacle began from a point the change of seats belonging to Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, which dramatically turned into a shooting match, then petitions after petitions, and finally an accusation. Today, as it stands, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has been suspended and barred from the National Assembly for 6 months after the Senate rejected against the Senate President for violation of rules, a petition which she has now represented. But before walking out of the Senate chambers, the senator says, and I quote, "This injustice shall not stand," end of quote. Tonight, we'll break this whole mystery so everyone can understand. Joining me from Abuja studio is Right Honorable Eseme, former spokesperson of the House of Reps and current special advisor, media and publicity, and official spokesperson to the President of the Senate. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight.
Jumoke, thank you very much, viewers. A good evening to everyone.
Thank you. So this has become an emotive issue, but as journalists, we are driven by fact and not sentiments, and that's why it's important for us to have this conversation tonight. Most of my questions tonight will be based on the kinds of conversations I have seen on social media and the thought process of some Nigerians regarding this matter. So let's start this way. Why was Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan suspended? The committee says she violated the rule as contained in Order 6. What does it say?
I didn't hear that last part.
So I said the senator was suspended. So I'm asking, the committee says she violated the rule as contained in Order 6. What does it say?
Well, thank you very much for the question. First, we need to understand what the Senate, or indeed the National Assembly, is all about. National Assembly is a creation and creature of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. And to that extent, it is empowered with the legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the same National Assembly, in its operation and its proceedings, is being empowered by Section 60 of the Constitution. That gives it power to make body of rules and regulations to guide its proceedings. That is the origin of the standing order. It has nothing to do with an individual, and it has nothing to do with any arm other than National Assembly, as it were. So Section 6, sub 1 and 2 empowers the Senate President by that standing order to now allocate seats. Section 2, sub 2 gives him that power for adjustments. Section 11, sub 3, in case of any realignment or the issue of senators defecting from one party to the majority party, that adjustment and that realignment must be done. And Section 50, sub 4, empowers the any senator at any given time. And of course, you will have to, at all times, speak from your seat. And what is Section 10 deals with privileges. What it therefore means is that before any senator can speak, you have to speak from your seat and not from anywhere. From your seat, not from anywhere. If it's an issue bordering on privileges, you have to do that at any given time. You are obliged to do that at any given time, but not from anywhere. So where you intend to speak, if you are not on your seat, you will not be obliged to so do. That is what it's all about. In the instance case, people are mixing the suspension. The issue is this. On the 20th of February, this incident took place where Senator Natasha conducted herself in a manner which was unparliamentary. The lack of decorum, and of course, derobed the institution of its ethical integrity. And because of that unruly behavior, a senator rose underprivileged and brought the issue up. The issue was now sent to the Ethics and Privileges Committee. For her, you have to go there and defend yourself, state your own case. You must also be heard. And the committee sat, gave invitation to all the parties who came to give testimony. But Senator Natasha never availed herself the opportunity to be heard. She stayed back. She was, when the information for the sitting of that committee was given in the Senate during the plenary, she was there in the plenary, but she refused to attend. And we must also know that the punishment has nothing to do, it has nothing to do with any allegation of harassment, with any other thing other than the issue of that unruly parliamentary conduct.
All right, because what has been said is that it looks like her fate was already decided before her petition was referred to the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions. And she complicated matters by not going through the proper procedure. My next question would be, is outright suspension the only penalty or consequence for anyone who flouts this part of the Senate rules? Is that a window for some sort of an apology, especially because there was no fair hearing?
Well, when you are talking about parliamentary procedure, why people are getting freely to discuss about the procedures, most of the discussants of this issue, they are not versed in parliamentary practice, precedent. There are three things here.
Right.
You are talking about the law that empowers it, that created the Constitution, that created the parliament. You are also talking about the standing order, which is what regulates the practice and the proceedings in the parliament. You are also talking about precedent. This thing has been going on over the years. Remember Senator Otton Zerebe of the blessed memory. May so rest in peace. He went through this same process. You remember Dino Melaye? Recently, Senator Ningi was also disciplined in the parliament through this same process of parliamentary procedure. So it has nothing to do with bias. It has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with the fact that, she has any problem with anybody. It was a clear issue of
I hear you, Honorable Esemeyubo, and that's why you're here tonight. And that's why you're here tonight, to help us understand better what these parliamentary procedures are. And I wanted us to establish that because the conversation that's taken center stage is that she was suspended because she was bold enough to stand up to the Senate president, whom she had accused of, sexually harassing her. And I keep wondering if this means it is okay to break constitutional rules. But, I mean, who says you cannot challenge constitutional rules, especially as the world evolves? What do you make of all of this? The institution is already perceived as, a place meant for men in a Senate with only 4 female senators. I mean, the other day, Senator Reti Kingwe had to walk out of the Senate over FCT demolition issue. Now, when one of these women raises a sexual harassment allegation against the leadership, it automatically casts aspersions on the entire institution. Public sentiment will naturally tilt in her favor. Now, despite the leadership saying there was total disregard for Senate rules, that has become a secondary issue. The dominant narrative out there is sexual harassment. What some Nigerians are saying is she presented a petition and shortly after she was suspended. So I want us to talk about that and also the representation of her petition.
Jumoke, I think we have to be very honest in our conversation on this issue. This incident took place on the 20th of February. And on that 20th, until day before yesterday, or until yesterday, there was never a time that Senator Natasha made a petition, made a report to either the police, law enforcement agency, or to the Senate over the issue of sexual harassment. The issue of sexual harassment came up when she appeared on Arise television. That was where she now made this allusion of sexual harassment. And of course, by the time that this matter came up under privilege. The matter I'm talking about is the issue of the breach of the standing orders. The breach is the issue. It has nothing to do with sexual harassment, and which was sent to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges. So it was there, the Committee on the Committee on Ethics, yes, of course, Public Petition and Privileges, now invited her to come and say her own part, which is natural, fair hearing, and she refused to oblige herself. It was later, on Wednesday, that she came up with the issue of the petition on sexual harassment. That was the first time the Senate, the public, the law enforcement, and any community was even aware of the allegation of formal allegation of sexual harassment.
Okay. So what's the status of that petition?
Sadly and unfortunately,
what's the status of that petition?
Sorry?
What's the status of that petition she represented to the Senate?
The petition she came with on Thursday was the petition she wrote on the issue of sexual harassment. That's the petition she brought. And that is the same day that the Committee on Ethics and Privileges were bringing in the report. So her petition was like any other petition, and which she was obliged to present. And it was observed that in the same petition she wrote, she put her name and signed, which is not the practice. Is there in the standing order that a senator cannot sign his or her own petition? It's not something which is today. But unfortunately, it seems that she has not been reading her standing order to understand what the rules are.
Honorable, what we know at the moment is that she has represented that petition to the Senate. Is that true?
Of course, when it was observed, because of the generosity of the principal officer, the presiding officer, she was obliged to represent when she moved up again to say a constituent from her constituency brought a petition. Okay. And it was forwarded to Ethics and Privileges. Okay. It's the same process which was given. And that was just yesterday. Okay. So it has nothing to do with the issue of the breach of the standing order, the breach of the rules.
I hear you. I hear you. And just now you've said the petition has been referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics Privileges for investigation. And the committee has also given 4 weeks to conduct its probe and report to the Senate. You know, there are those who have said to sustain the integrity of the Senate, the honorable thing is for the Senate President to step aside till this investigation is over. They say he cannot preside over his own case. I wonder how you react to that.
No. Yeah, the issue of stepping aside is the standard practice usually. If the petition goes in procedurally correct, and all the parties will be invited to the committee to testify, the Senate President will only step down when they are deliberating on the report of the committee. But we have not gotten to that point yet. But to now ask the Senate President to step down now, let me give you an example. A lot of people have been talking about the issue of stepping down, including Senator Bukola Saraki. You don't step down, stepping down is when the report is brought for deliberation. For example, Senator Saraki served as the Senate President, the 8th Senate President, and it was coming from Code of Conduct. It was in a doc, in a Code of Conduct. It was coming to preside over the Senate. You will remember the issue of Ofa robbery incident that took place, where, whether correctly or politically motivated, but the Senate President's name then was generously mentioned. The police even came and made an open release and comments on it of complicity of the then Senate President. But he never stepped down. So why are we now saying here on an issue that has nothing to do with the person of the Senate President, either the office of the Senate President or the personality of the presiding officer, Senator Godswill Akpabio?
All right, then. It is not right. Let's talk about this.
And pray that because to Senator Natasha, it seems to me as a person that the sports of weaponizing on the feminism is very familiar to her.
All right, Honorable Semeyibo, let me remind you also that for the purpose, kindly hold on, for the purpose of this conversation, I want us to be very civil. I do not want you to, start calling names and, put up some unsubstantiated allegations.
I'm not calling names, but I am saying that I am trying to add value to what I'm trying to say. Because if you follow the trend of this sexual harassment and the personality, it looks like sexual harassment allegation is becoming a sport, and it is always in her.
So let's talk about let's now talk about it. Let's talk about it. I mean, we've heard the Senate president's position, but what could have transpired that would have made a sitting senator accuse the Senate president of sexual harassment? One, both senators are family friends. Senate President Akpoti publicly acknowledged the type of relationship that existed between both families before now. He was at the wedding ceremony of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. How did both of them get to this point?
I don't think that distinguished Senator Natasha, I don't think that she has regards to relationship. She has regards to friendship. She values most of these things. I'm not mentioning them, but if that were so, the issue of Reno Omokri will have not, you are conversant with that, is in the public domain, wouldn't have taken place. If it is so, when she was a staff of Brass LNG, which she worked for 5 years, by her personal account, the issue of sexual harassment, that's what I'm saying, is more or less like sports to her, regardless of the personality, regardless of her relationship with the persons who are victims and potential victims. So the issue of family, the issue of relationship, it doesn't really matter to her. Because if it really mattered to her, she and her husband, according by her account, went to Senator Akpabio's house. And these are people who have been friends over the years. And she is saying that during the birthday of Senator Akpabio, that then, it was then that she was with her husband, Senator Akpabio held her hand. If he wanted to harass her sexually, would he have been in the man's family house with the wife and all the security men in that house? Of course, the answer is no. Only that people are trying to weaponize it, So what I'm saying is clearly, and I want you to appreciate that fact, that the issue of relationship, as far as Senator Natasha is concerned, it has no place in our consideration.
Agreeably, Honorable Semeyibo, some of us are oblivious of, National Assembly operations. But I listened to First Lady Senator Oluremi Tinubu, whose position on this matter is that the Senate is a place of honor and should not be where such things should happen. I mean, she went on to say, people compliment you all the time, and every female senator must protect herself and her honor. I'm tempted to ask, could this allegation have been some sort of unsolicited compliments gone wrong?
Well, Jumoke, I can tell you that it is not the use of feminism to weaponize that took the likes of Dr. Ngozi Iweala to the level she is. It is not Senator...
Honorable Semeyibo, I do not think this is about feminism. This is about a senator who has alleged that the Senate president sexually harassed her. This is not about feminism. And at this point, I think it's important for us...
She's also trying to weaponize it. She's trying to weaponize it.
Well, you're also alleging...
As a senator, they all interact. As a senator, they all interact among themselves. They crack jokes. They share comic reliefs and all of that. So I don't know at what time. There are about 4 senators there in that place. And the Senate, the present Senate is the most friendly, gender-friendly Senate in the annals of our time. Our problem is simply that she was changed from the Senate Committee on Local Content to the Senate Committee on Diaspora.
So
simply, otherwise, she doesn't have any reason to behave the way she behaves, and went ahead to put
because at this point,
a very innocent, disciplined.
Honorable Semeyibo, at this point, it's important for us all to know that legislative chambers must uphold the highest standards of professionalism to effectively serve the people and maintain trust. Inappropriate behavior such as unsolicited compliments or actions intended to make anyone happy or feel good about yourself should have no place in a place like the Senate. And you would agree with me that this undermines the integrity of the institution and can sometimes, or most times, create hostile environments, particularly for women. But for some senators who had one or two to say, they were strongly convinced that the bone of contention is the removal of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan from the Committee on Local Content. Why was she removed?
I can tell you that the appointment of every person, every senator, every member of parliament into any committee is usually driven by merit. The merit I'm talking about is the issue of capacity, the issue of output, the issue of the conduct, the personality of the headship or membership of that. If you were appointed into a particular committee to head, like in this case, then the output at the end of the day, because there is the issue of peer mechanism where they all monitor themselves to see through oversight, through the issue of the management of the committees. You use it to, the leadership will use it to assess each of the senators. And in this case, it is not the issue of the Senate president. The leadership of the Senate, who are also members of one committee or the other, they must always look at the committees and rearrange it as much as possible, especially in cases where you have new entrants. She came in by, I think, October 2023, and within that period, if she doesn't understand standing orders, which is the first thing with the Constitution that is given to everybody, then how will she be able to understand the functionalities and the expectations
she claimed
and the
she was removed,
of the committee?
Honorable Aibo, she claimed she was removed from the Senate Committee on Local Content due to perceived biases, and that some lawmakers suspected she was diverting resources meant for the Niger Delta to the north. She also said this is because her tenure was marked by rigorous oversight, how she ensured accountability from agencies under its jurisdiction. So people thought the Senate was witch hunting her.
I can tell you for free, if you look at the Senate as it is now, there are 4 women. The 4 ladies, one, the lady from Lagos, the senator representing, I think Lagos East, the senator from Lagos, she is the chairman of Humanitarian Committee, which is a very huge and sensitive committee. If you look at the Senator Baningo from Rivers State, she is the chairman of the Committee on Health Services, which of course, no doubt, you cannot fault the elaborate nature of that committee. Senator Ireti Kinkibe is the chairman of the Senate Committee on Women Affairs, and Senator Natasha Uduaghan is the chairman committee on the diaspora affairs, and I expect that her committee is even the best. But unfortunately, her problem is because of this mentality of a juicy committee. There is nothing like juicy committee in the parliament. It is the chairman of the committee who drives the committee to become juicy. Let me
and this has also raised questions about the high level of favoritism over competence in the Senate. But how does the Senate President also intend to address the allegations raised by Joy Noel, who was a former director in NDDC? She claimed in 2020 that she slapped Senator Akpabio cause of sexual harassment.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that we have come to a level where tabrushing is becoming a public discourse. Now, the issue of the NDDC, you will agree and you know for sure that the most successful minister, and indeed the Niger Delta people, owe a debt of gratitude to Godswill Akpabio. That audit investigation, which was set up, forensic audit, it was anything that will rattle anybody. And anybody who was in office at that time and became a victim of that forensic audit would definitely go to anywhere and use tab brush, just like the way...
all right, Honorable. This is an ongoing conversation, and we'll be here to monitor these developments as they unfold. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Right Honorable SMA, former spokesperson to the House of Reps and currently Special Advisor, Media and Publicity and official spokesperson to the President of the Senate. Thank you so much for your perspective.
Thank you most sincerely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's go on a short break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Dr. Kweban, who is a lawyer and political